Only one hit. Okay, let's go with last level, which is faster because we have less Chocobo.
Miz, go, 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 go. Alright guys, welcome to Dissidia. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
welcome to
sorry.
Chocobotel.
So yeah, I'm gonna talk, but tell me if you want me to shut up for you to explain stuff, right?
Oh, you can, you can.
So
Yeah, and tell me if I need to run the game also.
So can I talk now?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
thank God.
Alright, so
J'arrive.
so how does the DCI battle system work? If you are familiar with NT, then it's kind of the same. You see the big numbers on the screen on the bottom right and left hand corners. This is the bravery. So how do we increase our bravery? We deal bravery damage, obviously. So if we deal 100 points of bravery damage, the enemy's bravery is lowered by 100, and ours is increased by 100. What happens when our bravery or the enemy's bravery reaches 0? The enemy is broken, and the stage bravery, the number that is at the bottom middle of the screen, gets added to our bravery. So it's a good way to increase very fast our bravery. What is the purpose of doing this? Well, we can deal HP damage with our bravery. So if we have 100 points of bravery, we will deal 100 points of HP damage. So there are two ways of winning battles in this game. You can either increase very high your bravery above the value or the current HP value of the enemies and land a single HP attack, or do multiple HP attacks to kill the adversary. So MrMizzow right now is in the prologue, so it's an introduction or kind of a tutorial on how the story mode works. Basically, we are going to play on those boards, and we want to go as fast as possible. So each story segment has 5 chapters, and to finish a chapter, we can either get into contact with this red thing that MrMizzow just interacted with, which is called the stigmata, or a boss symbol. So right now we are going to deal with the stigmatas for the first 4 chapters of the prologue, and then the final chapter will have a boss. And what we can do is just move around, interact with those little gray mannequins. So once again, this is basically a huge tutorial section of the game, explaining us how to move around. So as you can see, it's kind of a weird mix between a battle fighting game, in the likes of Dragon Ball Tenkaichi, and an RPG, and you will see the RPG elements in a few moments. And on the boards, well, you have the enemies that you need to navigate through. You have potions, like MrMizzow is going to get at the moment, or you have chests, which contains items that are very important for the run, obviously. So right now we are playing with the Warrior of Light. So this is mandatory, obviously, for the story mode. We first need to perform the prologue, and then we will be able to choose either one of the 10 Cosmos or the Heroes characters that we can choose. MrMizzow is going to pick Zidane from Final Fantasy IX, and you'll see in a few minutes that Leo is going to pick Tidus from Final Fantasy X. Another element of gameplay that I didn't explain yet is the EX gauge. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, you see this bluish or purplish gauge that can be filled through either obtaining a potion on board or actions in the battle or in actual battle. You will see that when MrMizzow attacks the enemy, there are those little bluish orbs that appear. Either the small orbs or the big one that he obtained at the very beginning of the fight. And those allow you to fill your EX gauge. And when your EX gauge is filled, you can transform into the EX mode. This is kind of the limit break system of Final Fantasy Dissidia, where your crit chance increases, you have a regen effect, allowing you to recuperate a little bit of health. And you also have access to various effects. So Warrior of Light deals more damage when he is in EX mode. on the board, what can also happen, and you're going to see this very soon, is a chain. So when you get ambushed by multiple pawns, so if you are in between, or if multiple enemies are touching your symbol on the map, you will get chained, meaning that if you interact with either one of the enemies here, the other one will force a battle after the fight is over. The first fight is over. So this is very important because we are going to make sure that this chaining doesn't happen in the later part of the runs. So keep this in mind.
This victory will be remembered.
So here, as you can see, the other pawn is chaining MrMizzow, and well, the simple or the fastest way to deal with this is to just run away.
Light never fades.
And we are starting right after this the final chapter of the prologue. And MrMizzow is going to try to pay extremely close attention to the screen during the fight, especially when we are going to break the boss, because there is another element of the game, which are battle gens. So what are battle gens? There are drops that can occur during the fights. Each single type of character, of enemy, so either a Squall or an Ultiminicia or Garland here in this instance, can drop an item that can be equipped either as an accessory or used to farm items in the shop. And this item is very important because we can drop an item that will increase our strength by 1. And this 1 point of strength can carry a lot of importance throughout the run. So we'll see if we're lucky. It will happen when we break Garland.
Light, give me strength.
And no luck. So we won't have the strength powder, sadly.
Not today, lads.
Nope.
One day, but not today.
I mean, come on, you're lucky enough to be ahead, so.
And here starts the salt.
Dude, I see you've got Ultima on your screen there, Kaeldori. Just need that blue. Just need
Yeah,
that
just
blue.
need that little blue.
Alright, let's see if we can draw it.
Yeah. And that's the
Oh,
one I
there it
wanted.
is. Oh,
The thing is, I can't really play it. That's the well, maybe I can. Need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No. Can't play it right now. Need to play it in 2 turns.
yeah. Unfortunately, attacks on yellow for the next 2 turns, so gotta wait.
Alright, so MrMizzow is starting the Destiny Odyssey for Zidane. So why do we choose Zidane? He's actually currently the fastest character at the moment for the run. Multiple reasons for this. First, he has a very, very strong summon that we will obviously grab in the Destiny Odyssey. He has a fairly short Destiny Odyssey, so this story segment for Zidane is pretty short. But most importantly, he is one of, if not the most, or the character that is the least susceptible to RNG in fights, because we have an infinite loop that works on pretty much every single enemy in the game. So what MrMizzow is going to try to go is rush through the boss using chase mode and reach level 3 as soon as possible.
Jeez, even blocked that did 9 damage. Holy cow.
So as you can see here, the characters or our enemies are not doing anything. Usually the first characters that we're facing are pretty weak in terms of AI, so everything that we're doing, they just take it.
There we go. We beat him. Now we'll go to the nowhere. Okay, like you like to call him. and I will show you my strat on it. Maybe it will not work this time. I don't know, but
Yeah, I tried to chain a few together, but I couldn't. I can't shoot them straight enough.
yeah, that's
They
good.
always seem to go off. They always seem to go off at an angle at some point.
It's real. You will see. You will see.
Okay, I'm watching.
Yeah, I like this part of the game because I think it's a reference to Final Fantasy One. Because basically the scenario is uh, to get all his power, he needed to be defeated 4 times, and the scenario of Final Fantasy One is like uh, I'm invincible because you beat me first in the future. So because you beat me in the future, I can get I can go to the past, and because I can go to the past, I can revive all the things that allow me to get me back on the past. But there is no real sense because it's
It
like
sounds like the same kind of logic they use in this game.
yeah, it's like yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally meant to lose. Honest, really. Please believe me.
That means he can do anything if nobody beat him. So yeah, no, that's weird. That's weird. But yeah, we are on the final boss. Won't take much time normally. I don't.
So does that
I
mean
mean,
I should
I,
prepare?
I can't die. I mean, it's impossible to die. Like really, no, really, it's impossible. I mean, to die, you have to not understand what is the game. Like really.
I got to like 2 or 3 hearts well in my PB though.
Yeah, and, generally you got it by yourself. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you got.
I just didn't really care about defending my goal at all though.
Yeah, to
Just
be honest, I mean sometimes it can do a super attack, but it's like really rare.
it's
Never
very
do it.
rare. Yeah.
Yeah, I turn my turn my Chocobo O, which do funny dialogue. But yeah,
Flipping weeb.
yeah. Follow me, yo.
Okay, so Mizo just reached level 3. As you can see right there, he's using a skill that is on the map, that is usable only on the map, the Mazer Eye, that decreases the HP of our targets. We're going to face our first boss of the Destiny Odyssey. And you will see that those map skills are extremely important, especially in the later part of the run. So first boss, we have a Kefka. Mizo makes sure to have his EX gauge filled, because EX gauge or EX mode is extremely important in the run or in the game in general. Our damage output is really good because of the crits. I think you have some kind between, it depends on the attacks, but you have sometimes like a multiplier of 7 or 10 when you land a crit on certain attacks, so it's really important. And as you can see, Mizo is using the chase mode, so something that I didn't mention earlier. You have this kind of cinematic portion of the gameplay where you see Mizo getting closer to the enemy. And in this chase mode, you have two options. Either you can land a bravery attack or an HP attack, and it's the same for the enemy. If the enemy manages to dodge your attack, then it's their turn to either do a bravery or HP attack, and you can dodge in turn. So chase mode is really good against very low level AI because they take simply everything. And in terms of bravery damage, chase mode is actually pretty strong. So while the AI allows it, we are going to maximize the usage of chase mode, but we will soon get rid of it for a much more consistent way of dealing bravery damage.
Okay, so on the last part of the boss,
Uh-huh.
normally it will be.
Dang, this strat is actually doing pretty well for you.
Yeah.
You're getting, geez, it's lagging a lot though. Whenever you double
Yeah.
strike on emulator, huh?
I think it's my best run for now on this boss, like really.
This is
I did it
yes,
perfectly.
it's great when you get that chain going.
Yes, when it does this.
Yep, that's how you do it.
Yeah. I love when the boss do this. Please.
Maybe this isn't a good idea.
And there we go, last hit. We need.
Alright, so here
we
you
go.
have the instance of the loop with the Tempest. As you can see, Mizzow is landing an attack, then dodging. And I will just wait for the end of the run to explain what dodge cancelling does in the game and why it's the most important tech in the game, either competitively or in the speedrun.
That was some sweet no air hockey.
Okay, so boss is over. Just need to
All you gotta
stop
do
the
is
last
try.
scene and we'll be done.
Awesome. GG.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right there, Mizzow is obtaining Alexander, so our first summon that we're going to see. All summons can be activated in fights, and all of the summons impact bravery. Why is Alexander so amazing? When we are going to break an enemy, our bravery value will be fixed for something like 30 seconds. So something that I didn't mention yet is when we are landing an HP attack that doesn't kill the enemy, our bravery will momentarily reach 0 and then start regaining up to its base value. So by activating Alexander, when we perform an HP attack, our bravery will still remain at the value it got fixed at. So it's really, really strong to land multiple HP attacks in a row. And as you're going to see throughout the run, we are going to cheese through some bosses thanks to this.
And time.
GG!
Let's go. Vas-y.
GG.
Yeah, credit drops. No record. No
Allez,
kidding.
c'est parti.
So meanwhile, Omega was explaining what Alexander does. Now you'll get the visual representation on this boss.
Absolutely. So there are two types of summon. I will just go explaining this when we're done with the boss. So we just need to force the loop, as you can see. So Mizzow is landing the first hit of the Tempest, then doing a dodge cancel. So dodge canceling is the strongest tech and the most valuable tech in the entire game. It allows us to stop the animation of a lot of attacks, either bravery attacks here, or HP attacks. We can, if we want, do the dodge cancel before the active frames of the attack, in the middle, or after to lower the recovery time. And some characters have those kind of loops, like Zidane here, of landing an attack, doing a dodge cancel. During this time, the enemy is in this kind of staggered state, where is not able to do anything. And then doing the dodge cancel gives us the right timing to perform the same attack, landing the attack because the invulnerability frames of the stagger states are over, and looping the enemy entirely. So this is super strong. As you saw, we were able to perform 2 quick HP attacks in quick successions thanks to Alexander. So as I mentioned, there are 2 types of summon. The automatic summons that are the earliest, or the ones that you obtain the earliest here in the Destiny Odysseys for the most part. You don't have the control over the activation of those summons. So here Alexander, for 3 fights, will activate every time we stagger, or we perform the break. Sorry, this is not Final Fantasy 13. We perform the break on the enemy. Some other summons are manual, so you can activate them whenever you want, and summons that have a overtime effects are usually stronger in the manual version, but they gain less usage. I mentioned that Alexander here at 3 usage, then it starts a cycle of recovery for a certain amount of times. You will not be able to use them. And the manual summons only have 2 usage before starting their recovery cycle. So here you see Leo doing the prologue once again. So
That's how you do it.
we are abusing the chase mode in this section because the AI are so low in terms of intelligence that they're not dodging anything. However, we can get trolls. Sometimes those AI start attacking, and since we are dashing at them as fast as possible, sometimes they can hit us. So we're hoping that it won't happen to any either of them. Didn't happen for MrMizzow. Let's see if it happens for Leo. So Hex Death here being a little bit annoying, but it's okay. As long as we are able to land the first Tempest, then it's easy peasy. So I mentioned that EX mode is super strong. It also allows us to perform an EX burst, as you are seeing here with Zidane. It's basically kind of the limit break. After performing an HP attack, you can press square once again, which is the command button for the HP attacks, and you will perform this animation that allows you to deal further damage. What is pretty cool with Alexander is that, as I mentioned, when you perform an HP attack, your bravery goes to 0, and normally the EX burst starts with your bravery being at 0. With Alexander, we are skipping this. It was kind of overkill here for this XF, but still it allows us to skip most of the animation of the EX burst, allowing us to finish the fight faster.
As much as on this specific floor it may look as if the fights are going slower due to using Alexander, but by getting his uses used up and then letting him go on recharge, it sets him up better on for later in the run. Plus, it means that he doesn't interfere with a couple of fights coming up where I actually kind of want to draw the fight out to be able to get my EX bar increased.
Absolutely. So MrMizzow is reaching the final chapter, right? Of what
Yep.
fourth? The final. Okay, the final chapter of the Destiny
Wow.
Odyssey.
Call the police. This man is going too fast.
And there are a lot of fights, as you can see. There are those kind of red squares with a cross inside them. Those will open after certain conditions are met. Either a specific mannequin has been defeated, or a certain amount of mannequins have been defeated. So, Duodecim, well, the speedrun is kind of different because the game is kind of a weird
Got it.
addition to the Dissidia franchise. There is a specific part to Duodecim, which has been speedrun by Leo, but the community is generally kind of non-existent outside of Shinoda and Leo, so the most active game so far, even though NT has some pretty good community there. The most active run has definitely been Dissidia, either for the Destiny Odyssey's single chapters or the Any Person.
So what I'm actually trying to do here is draw out the course of the fight to let an EX course spawn, so that I can get my EX for the upcoming boss.
Yep.
So by just letting Jet kind of throw me around a little bit and me to throw him around.
Yeah, and chase mode generates a lot of EX as well, EX Force. Those little orbs that are gathered into the core are called
So-
EX Force.
So I'm actually going to wait until he gets his bravery back before engaging him.
Mhm.
Because he's actually got his Marlboro summon on me, which is decreasing my bravery quite heavily depending
Yeah.
on how close you are to him. So by letting his bravery recharge, I can then use the breaking mechanic to get the stage bravery, which just tips me over enough to be able to do a HP attack to win, rather than trying to chase him around the map and wait for his summon to run out of time.
So we'll see if Leo gets lucky with the battle gen, and no, sadly, didn't happen.
Watch him get the shard.
I did get one, but not the one I wanted.
You'll be sorry.
So here MrMizzow just entered the fight with a golden piece, a golden mannequin. So those are scattered throughout the game. They usually have very low amounts of current HP. So here the Cecil had 1 HP, and they also start with normally either a filled EX gauge or a very high level of bravery, meaning that you can one-shot them, and they can also one-shot them. So something that I didn't mention yet is the importance of the Chocobo. So even if MrMizzow is in the Mug team, he'll still uses the Chocobo very heavily.
Can you give me a second, Omega?
Yeah,
Just so I could hear if he dashes me or not.
yeah.
Right, you're good.
Okay, so boss fight. I'll just explain the Chocobo later. So boss fight with Skuja. Pretty good pattern, to be honest. He dodged, we perform the Tempest, and then it's a GG. So pretty perfect fight in terms of RNG. You can troll, definitely, if he starts dashing at you, if he starts dodging, but easy peasy.
Joy.
Ideally, I would want him to actually dash at me, so I could just block him and make use of the opening. But if he starts to try and run away from me, he can either start attack me from range, which will actually interrupt my dash because of the style of his attacks,
Yep.
or he can start just running around the stage,
Mhm.
not wanting to get caught at all.
So here, as you can see, Leo is actually playing with another character, Titus, or Titus, however you want to pronounce it. Titus is pretty agile in terms of his moveset, and he also has a very strong attack, or that can strongly lead to chase mode. And you're going to see that Leo's run is going to rely mostly on chase mode. The hot step or quick step, I don't remember how it's called in English. Hot step has very low animation, or startup animation, startup frames. So you can usually land the attack fairly successfully. So the Chocobo, so you didn't see there because both players started the run on the screen where we start the timer. But we actually chose an element of the gameplay that is the Chocobo plan. Both of them chose the hardcore plan. And how does the plan work? Basically, we have a little Chocobo in the menu that you're going to see throughout the run when both players access their menu to equip stuff or to learn new or activate new abilities. And the Chocobo will hop step after step on this plan. This is super important because each plan has certain bonuses on certain fights. So let's say that on the 7th fight of the run, we have a bonus. This is consistent. Every 7th fight of each run will have this bonus. So we chose the hardcore plan because it gives us the highest amount of highly potent EXP bonuses, and we are going to try to line up throughout the run fights like the golden pieces that are very rich in terms of experience, or bosses with those fights that have a high Chocobo EXP bonus thanks to the Chocobo plan. So you're going to see that sometimes Mizzow and Leo are running away intentionally from fights in order to sync up or to line up the Chocobo bonuses on certain fights.
So, should we get started now? Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Yeah. Too slow. I'm right here. Too slow. Yeah. Yeah.
And here you see that Leo just gained something like 10,000 points of experience. That's a lot. That's usually a lot of experience, making him jump from level 1 to level 3 simultaneously. So this will happen throughout the run. So what I didn't mention yet, so with the American and European versions of the game, as soon as we finish a single Destiny Odyssey, we can start the kind of specific storyline of Dissidia with the Shade Impulse story modes. In the original Japanese release, we had to complete the 10 stories with the 10 characters first before starting the Shade Impulse. So we're lucky we don't have to do that. And here we are going to see stronger enemies, a lot more bosses on the maps that are optional. Here MrMizzow is going to face a Kefka because he's on the route. But generally, we are going to try to avoid the bosses because obviously they are stronger, they have more HP, their AI is usually at a higher level, so they tend to parry and dodge more often. So it's usually not worth doing those fights. What MrMizzow is going to try to do here on the Onion Knight is to charge Easy X Gauge once again for the Kefka fight because we want to be maxed in terms of the X Gauge for this fight. And actually, Leo is doing the exact same thing. So as you saw, he built a lot of EX Force to charge the EX core that is here on the map. He is almost filled. And then he's going to finish the fight.
Just because I'm seeing it in chat, out of all the 10 characters in this game that are available to you at the start, most of them are pretty viable in terms of speedrunning. What me and Leo are essentially doing is that we're kind of playing the characters that we're most comfortable with. Actually, Omega here actually plays Squall from FF8, so it kind of gives you an idea that it's one of those games where you don't need to strictly always follow the same route. It's that if you are physically better with one playstyle of character, you can make that work.
Yeah. Some characters are definitely more competitive in terms of how quick you can kill the game.
Yeah, I'm sorry, FF6 fans, you're kind of out.
Yeah, FF2 to be honest as well. And Cloud-ish kinda. But definitely, I mean, if you want to play the game and start the run, you can definitely hop on it, play your favorite character or the one that you have the best time out of the 10, and you're good to go.
So it may look a bit silly, I'm entering this fight and fleeing it, but I'm actually using this to recharge Alexander because he was still on cooldown for the fight.
So yeah, as I mentioned, you can flee the battles to link up your Chocobo, but you can also do this to make one step in the recovery cycle of the summons. So here, two birds killed with one stone. So the strength of the Tempest skill is the range, the downward movement that it has. So even if we are kind of in the air, Tempest is still going to hit. Yeah, Furion is a pretty good character, but speedrun-wise, is not really a good option. I mean, the idea of speedrunning this game is to harass the AI. You want the AI to stay in place for you to deal the maximum amount of damage and being able to land an HP attack as soon as possible when your bravery allows for a quick kill. You have multiple characters that can do that. You have Wire of Light. However, his Destiny Odyssey is one of the longest. You have Squall, you have Zidane. You have Cloud in certain instances. His Destiny Odyssey is one of the shortest, but his Infinite Loop is less consistent than Warrior of Lights and Zidane, sadly. But yeah, the idea is to land multiple attacks and have them connect every single time. The main difference between Zidane's and Tidus's routes is the fact that Leo will have to rely on chase mode, and sadly, chase mode is relatively RNG dependent. It really depends on the level of the AI. So if the game agrees on a quick kill, Leo will hit the HP attack, like he just did on this Zidane, and sometimes he will struggle a little bit more. Yeah, what Kuno said actually. Furion is supposedly on the ground or on the paper the strongest character, ground-based character. When it comes down to actual gameplay, I'm not so sure it's actually true. I think Jack is much stronger than him. But he has an ability, Furion, called the Shield Bash, or the Coup Bouclier in French. I don't know how it's really translated in English. That allows him to...
correct.
Yeah, okay. That allows him to counter with an HP attack if something connects with it. So
Furion also, from a speedrunner perspective, his AP cost for some of his bravery skills is incredibly low compared to other characters, so you get some really nice combo attacking HP skills right out the gate.
Yeah.
By the time you reach the Shade Impulse chapters, which makes him extremely powerful.
Mhm.
Firian's initial struggle is that his only HP attack is incredibly slow and easily dodgeable, but once you get through his actual story, he has incredible potential.
Mm-mm. Yeah, the way that the game is balanced is that bravery attacks, so the main source of damage that we're doing, are usually pretty fast. So here a little bit of fighting games jargon. The startup frames are fairly short, and they are fairly short recovery as well, meaning that it's usually easier to land a bravery attack than an HP attack. The HP attacks have longer startup frames, meaning that the AI will usually, and here it does free energy, that is basically instant, right? But yeah, HP attacks are usually slower, so the AI will have an easier time dodging them. The way that you can kind of circumvent this is with a bravery to HP combo. So it's abilities that are built in the game where you start an a bravery attack, and during the attack, Zidane has one, for instance, Cloud as well, Tidus as well, Furion, like MrMizzow mentioned as well. You can press square, and it will automatically turn into an HP attack, allowing you to land HP attacks easier. The problem with this, and why those kind of characters that rely on those attacks are kind of not preferred for the speedrun, is the fact that you need to master those abilities. So, like Final Fantasy IX, where you equip something that allows you to learn a new ability, you can you can
Shouts the PSP cameras.
yep, you can master an ability. So each ability has a certain amount of AP that you gain after battles for you to master. And when you master certain bravery abilities, you will unlock those trees, those HP attacks that combo into your bravery attacks. And that takes time. So as MrMizzow mentioned, you need some fights for Furion to be actually viable in terms of dealing HP damage, sadly.
Characters like Onion Knight and Terra also kind of go down the same path where they have access to these nice early combo attacks, but you need to really commit. Ooh, this is not going pretty, in fact.
Yep.
I think we'll just abandon that one.
Yeah. So yeah, it really, decision making is also a very important skill in this speedrun. Learning when a fight is not savable is also something that you really need to develop as a speedrunner for this game. So here, maybe MrMizzow could have gave up earlier because the start was really starting to turn sour, sadly. Allows you to save time by not wasting more time than you should. And Leo is progressing through his story. We're going to see another instance of a gold piece where we're going to do the fights.
Let's get on with it. Too slow. 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 Yeah. Too slow. Yeah.
So did you mention the summon I got?
Absolutely not. So thank you, Leo. I was wondering when it was actually happening, and then I started to speak about something else. So, here you see on Leo's screen, on the when he is on the map, on the middle, at the top middle of the screen, you see this level bonus something. This relies on destiny points. So when we start on a chapter of each story segment, we start with a certain amount of destiny points. Here you see on the left that MrMizzow had 3 remaining destiny points. You can actually obtain certain items, either equipment or money or stuff, depending on the amount of destiny points remaining you have when you finish the chapter, either by making contact with the stigmata or by killing the final boss of the chapter. Here, what Leo did is perform certain fights that had certain conditions. That when you meet those conditions, you gain another destiny point, and doing so in a specific route. He was able to obtain the Behemoth summon, which is a manual summon. So here Leo will be able to manually activate it whenever he wants. And the effect of Behemoth is that it doubles the value of Bravery, but then starts depleting it over time. So it's a very, very strong summon. When you are building Bravery, you can instantly press R and circle to activate the summon, and then finish the fight very quickly before the decrease over time effects actually has any importance.
You'll be sorry.
So on Mizzow's side, nothing really interesting to mention. We're doing the Tempest Loop as much as we can, dodge cancelling into free energy. So free energy is kind of a gem. It's one of the fastest HP attacks, meaning that the startup frames are like 3 or 4. So it's really, really fast. And what's pretty broken by design is that you simply need to do a neutral cancel. So by simply pressing R and cross, doing a dodge with no direction, you are at the perfect range, because the free energy actually has some kind of a donut AoE for the hitbox. So if you're too close to the enemy, you will not connect. But if you're by simply doing a dodge cancel or neutral cancel, by simply performing the dodge, you are at the perfect range. So Leo is reaching the final chapter of the Destiny Odyssey. Once again, we're going to do a fight against a golden piece to really maximize our XP. So this is really the bread and butter of routing Dissidia. We're really trying to sync up as much as possible fights that are really high or highly rewarding in terms of experience with the Chocobo in order to really gain experience as fast as possible. Because not only, something that I didn't mention yet, not only we are getting higher stats and learning new abilities with higher levels, we can also go into the shop to equip other equipment, because the equipment system in Dissidia is level gated, meaning that you need to be at a certain level for being able to equip certain pieces of equipment. So the higher level, or the faster we gain those levels, the faster we can equip those items. And usually the boost of stats of strength and base bravery that we're getting with the weapons and the helmets respectively that we're buying throughout the run really make a lot of difference. So being able to equip as fast as possible those equipments really is how we are able to keep our damage relevant, because as you can see, we are really doing the minimum amount of fights as possible, as much as possible. So the game was really balanced for you to kind of move around the maps, especially in the Shade Impulse chapters, for you to gain levels naturally. However, since we are really rushing through the game, by making the most out of those golden pieces and fights and syncing up the Chocobo bonuses with certain fights, we are catching up, or basically being equivalent to what you would be as a level if you did pretty much every fight.
To kind of give you some perspective, I'm currently running around at now just about level 22. This point in the game, it really kind of intends you to be kind of more in your mid 50s.
Here, you see Mizzow running away from the Jacked. We don't want to fight Jacked, especially at a high level, especially not on this map. You have, as you can see here as well on Leo's screen, the mannequins have different appearances. So you have the small pieces, the gray pieces here on the top of Mizzow's screen, that are the lowest in terms of level, in terms of AI. You have the gray pieces here, like the one I engaged, with the little swords in the back, which are generally stronger. They usually tend to have summons as well, and their AI is a little bit more intelligent. Then you have the red pieces, like we just ran away from the Jacked fights, and those fights can be a good idea to do, especially if you want to learn or gain a lot of experience. But those fights are generally pretty hard, because you are like usually something like 20 to 30 levels below what they are. So can be tricky to actually win those. And Leo is actually reaching Jack, so the final boss of the Destiny Odyssey.
Alright, so I'm gonna call for the spirit. Whenever it happens.
How do you like that?
So two bosses at the same time. So as you can see here, Leo, Mizzow has a ×2 bonus for X death, so that's actually pretty good. And as you just saw, Leo already has his EX gauge, and that's a perfect fight. So as you can see, during chase mode,
And
if you perform a bravery
Really?
attack, job. If you perform a bravery attack, the attack will appear instantaneously, meaning that you need to dodge it as soon as possible. The HP attacks of the chase mode have a little bit of delay, so if the AI dodges instantaneously when you perform an HP attack, the enemy will get hit. So that was perfect RNG, perfect fight. We got the hit as soon as possible, turn into EX to maximize the crits, and then perform the EX burst. So GG Leo. And on the other side, well, we make a quick work of X death with the Tempest loop.
Yep, that's how you do it.
And something that I didn't mention that I'm lucky to be able to mention. So as well as the Chocobo plan, we also chose a specific day on the system, either on the emulator for Mizzow or on the PSP for Leo. And being on the bonus day, you see on the upper right-hand corner of the main menu, we have this special icon, meaning that we have bonuses for EXP, for money, for AP, for pretty much everything. And we can also increase the bonus. So we start at the base level of 1.1 bonus of experience, and here Leo just bought the final boost to reach a bonus of 1.5 Nathan bonus. So once again, maximizing the experience that we get all the time.
yeah, I think it's the main differences between the two routes. Like Tidus will be at a very high level compared to Zidane. Something along those lines.
And here, Mizo got blessed by RNG. So I mentioned earlier that we were going to pay attention to the chains, so being ambushed by two pawns. At the end of the first Destiny Odyssey that you complete, you gain a new ability that is called Invisible, that allows you to not being chained. And this is the most important stuff and like the most RNG dependent factor of the run that can allow you to have a perfect run or not. Here, Mizo was lucky. He got it first try. What we have to do if we don't get it is to get away from the Shade Impulse 2 and then restart it. So that's something like a 25 seconds or 20-second loss at every try.
It's 40 seconds every time you need to reload the story because of cutscene loading.
Okay, so it's 40 actually.
It's quite abysmal.
Yeah,
And it should be a 50-50 chance, but it's a bit like being like confused or paralyzed in Pokemon. It doesn't feel like it.
And why is it important to have this ability? So first, we don't have to waste time fleeing from battles that are chaining us. Second, it's super important because something that you can guess with how I mentioned that you can run away from fights to make the Chocobo step. At every encounter that we engage here, you see that the pawn that is chaining us, but we are not going to get into the fight thanks to Invisible. This fight, if we engage in it, will make the Chocobo take a step. So here, Mizzow's route is actually pretty strict in terms of fight. We cannot take a single fight that we're not supposed to take because our Chocobo is lined up in such a way to maximize experience. And Gottmik, absolutely. So the any percent is from game start, actually from when we create the save, till when we kill Chaos at the end of the Shade Impulse. We are not doing the 3 optional chapters like the Distant Glories to unlock Shense to Engebranth and the Inward Chaos chapter. Yeah, Dissidia has a plot, kind of a weird plot. Basically, if you want the gist of it, is bad guys versus good guys.
That's it.
That's
It's
pretty
it's
much
one
it.
of those franchises where you kind of need to play all. Well, okay, so just to get this out of the way, Opera Omnia, the mobile game, is its entirely own entity. NT has references to the original two, but it's not directly influenced by them. Whereas Dissidia and Duodecim, or 012 as some people might know it, have direct story links with each other, where Duodecim is actually a prequel to Dissidia and explains how the fighters are in the current situation that they are. If anybody knows the overarching story of Final Fantasy One, it's basically based off of that. If you go through Duodecim's story mode, it basically teaches you um, a more story-driven version of Final Fantasy One.
And yeah, Exuno, the Jekt and Kuja segments are at the end of the Destiny Odysseys for each character. The Emperor split is the end of the Shade Impulse 2, so the chapter that MrMizzow is actually playing at the moment. And then the final split will be when we kill Chaos at the end of Shade Impulse 4. So once again here, you saw Leo build up his EX gauge for the fight that MrMizzow did a few minutes ago. The same Kefka, sorry.
This is also gonna be the very first time I'm gonna use my summon.
Well, technically, we are reaching the end of the game because we're seeing the credits, Kuno.
Today's victim.
We're seeing the end game or the fin screen at the end. So technically, we're finishing the story.
You did all right.
The Shade Impulse is the final story of Dissidia.
Yeah. There's no real story in the Distant Glories and in Inward Chaos. There's no development of the characters. We're skipping a lot of cutscenes where there is the story, quote unquote, of Dissidia.
In terms of timeline of the actual game, all 10 Destiny Odysseys are all happening at the same time. And if you play multiple ones, for example, if you play Squall's story, his finishes halfway through Zidane's, and kind of vice versa for Bart's, whereas his kind of starts about the end of chapter 2 into Zidane's when Kefka kidnaps him. So all of these 10 stories are all happening at the same time.
So here MrMizzow is starting the hardest chapter in the entire game. I'm gonna let you see how he manages to go through it. Good job, that was tight, huh? So another reason why we are especially interested in Invisible, most of the question mark symbols there have actually mannequins inside them that will attack you when you go next to them. So Invisible prevents this from happening. And here you just saw Leo activating Behemoth, so sadly he has to retry because of bad RNG and Kefka trolling in the chase mode.
Sure, I'll take you on.
That's a bad idea to start this kind of debate, Doc.
That was unnecessarily difficult.
Yeah, this is the problem, sadly, with chase mode. If the game decides to troll, there is absolutely nothing you can do, unfortunately.
Easy peasy.
Well, if you want to, I mean, we can take a few minutes to talk about the tier list.
Sure, I'll take you on.
In Dissidia, it's pretty hard to say because there wasn't really a huge competitive scene.
I'm gonna call that out.
Well,
It depends on where you live. It was very strong here in Glasgow, Scotland.
really?
Yeah, you would turn up to 32 entry tournaments, and I swear to God, 20 people would all be running XDeath. It was awful.
Yeah, but
Legitimately the best character in the game, but turns
Yeah.
out when all you fight is XDeaths, you kind of get good against it.
yeah,
Jekt is also a good notable mention. Cloud was pretty reasonable, but that was kind of more due to his popularity.
Yeah.
Sephiroth was really good. It turns out all of the villains were kind of the way to go.
but for the most
Uh,
part, the game really blew with Duodecim. There was a lot of online tournaments with the ad hoc system, with awful net code and awful ping, but still. But
It
yeah,
really
as,
helped that Square Enix really sat down and tried to balance Duodecim compared to the first game. I mean, what we're doing just now with Dane looks incredibly overpowered, but you do not get away with this in PvP. It's
Yeah.
purely because we're up against an AI that this is able to happen. Whereas
yeah,
characters like Cecil and Zidane are considered as very, very mid-tier.
yeah, even Squall, even Cloud. Squall
Yes,
was fairly
Squall,
high,
who
but not as
is arguably the best character to speedrun with, was incredibly mid-tier in the actual game because he didn't have a bravery to HP combo attack.
Yeah, and since those loops are banned in tournaments, well, you cannot use his strongest asset. So
Hunting Freeman, I am down. As long as you're buying.
But yeah, as Mizo mentioned, and this is actually quite surprising when you consider it, XDeath is probably the character that the AI masters the worst. What the AI does with XDeath, aside from like frame perfect parries, is like abysmal in comparison to the skill of certain players with XDeath in the competitive scene. And this is why this character is like a monster. And Ultimisia, that is probably one of the lowest tiered character in Dissidia, is like the second highest tiered in Duodecim. Once
So I
again
just
showing
noticed
that.
my bonus day gave me a discount on all the purchases.
Nice, good job. Mizo has the same thing. That's awesome.
Oh.
So yeah, we have also a random element to the bonus day. We can either have a increased value of the items that we're going to sell, or a decreased value to the items that we are going to buy. So either those are pretty good to have. So here, Leo is doing a fight that Mizo did not perform. We are fighting an Ultimisia that is much higher level than we are. But in terms of experience, we are lining up a 5 times bonus.
Yeah, right. Okay. I got
Yeah.
trolled.
Oof.
Well,
Well,
not that bad, but
yeah, you'll be fine.
Initially, the route for Zidane actually did this fight as well, but when you
Oh, my-
kind of break down the stages you go through with the Destiny Odysseys, it became much more worthwhile to skip that fight because of how like you're in there for a good like 5 minutes with him because he does so little damage against her. At least
Yeah,
he
yeah.
just has a fighting shot with his double damage EX bursts.
Yeah, the problem with Zidane is that even though his Tempest loop is probably one of the strongest tool in the game to prevent the AI from doing anything, in terms of damage, if you're not in EX mode, it's pretty bad. So we're reaching the final chapter of Shade Impulse 2. Here, in terms of design, it's pretty interesting because we have 3 enemies that we can fight. A low piece, a middle piece, and a high piece. So Mizo is going to pick the lowest tiered piece because they are the fastest to get rid of. But in terms of experience, if you're routing it, you can kind of decide to go for one fight or another because there is a Cloud, and Cloud is generally one of the weakest characters in the game because it's very easy to parry him. So you can choose what you want, and choosing the middle tiered instead of the lowest tiered might not be the worst idea when you think of it. So here, a little of a troll fight here. This Furion that Leo is fighting He's kind of a troll. He dodges a lot, so good job on killing him fairly fast.
Sure, I'll take you on. You did all right.
Perfect spawn for the fight for Leo. Usually maps have 3 spawns, so here we are on the Final Fantasy IV map, the move basically. And if the two characters spawn on those pillars, all you have to do is to wait for the enemies to dash at you, and you can parry this dash, allowing Leo a quick kill. So there is a lot of RNG in this fight, and decision making is very, very important. So recognizing which spawn you have and recognizing each startup, because usually the AIs of each fight are kind of orienting towards the same decisions that they're going to make. Recognizing each situation is basically the most important skill outside of performing the template loop or performing perfect chase. Going to the fastest option that you have and recognizing as fast as possible each situation, each spawns, and what you have to do for each spawn, either resetting to get a better spawn, that's also an option, or dashing, performing an attack, performing an HP attack. All those are basically the skills required for speedrunning this game. So here we are getting closer to the
I believe
Emperor
this
boss.
fight's a split. You may have to double check that on stream.
No.
No. We're good in terms of splits.
No, I think this fight might be a split for whoever's managing that.
Yeah. We are getting the split as soon as you see the kill, or when MrMizzow calls it. So we got the right spawn. So something that I didn't mention, once again, there's a lot of stuff in this game. When we're starting the Shade Impulse, each map will have its Omega version. So we have the normal version of each map, and each map also has an Omega version with changes in the rules on how the stage bravery moves, and also how basically the map plays out. Here, the Final Fantasy II map is like the worst map, along with Final Fantasy VII's map, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people agree. The worst thing that can happen on the Emperor fight is the fact that you have those big red pillars that start appearing on one side of the map and on the other. You want the pillars to appear on the other map for you to be able to actually do something against the Emperor, because they will interrupt you even if you are attacking. So good job on that fight against Kuja. He can be a troll. Next game will be Lightning Returns, right? I think. So we're starting the third Shade Impulse, so the second to last big segment. Here, MrMizzow is building once again Easy X Gauge by performing overdue damage with the chase mode. And he got lucky once again because he got invisible. So it's not very mandatory to get here or to get invisible in this chapter. First, because there are not that many fights where you will get chained, but it's still gain or save time.
The key about the invisible argument for Shade Impulse 3 is that it saves you a flat minute from running from fights straight away. So the 40 seconds you would lose from resetting, unless you're guaranteed to get it first try, which you aren't, it's not really worth going for. and our Chocobo plans that far through at this point that we're not getting any extra rewards from it outside of the final one. So we can now run Shade Impulse free without having to farm Invisible, which, trust me, I'm very, very thankful for. Now all we need is jump and Shade Impulse form. We've got a perfect shot.
So here on Leo's screen, you see the damage that we're starting to make, especially with the EX mode on certain enemies. So
Especially since I got the critical X boost ability.
absolutely. So we have. I guess I can take a minute to talk about crits. So there are a lot of circumstances in which you will get crits. Certain characters have an innate crit rate that is higher than others. I think Zidane and Bartz have, and Onion Knight as well, also have higher crit chance simply by performing attacks. You can also increase highly your amount of crits that you're dealing, either by parrying an attack. After a parry, the enemy will be staggered, and this will give you an opportunity to deal a lot of crits. Something that a lot of people kind of don't know or ignore is after performing an HP attack, you kind of apply some kind of a vulnerability to crits to the enemy, and for like a few attacks, you will do more crits. Obviously, the main source of crits in this game is the EX mode, and what we can do is at level 25, we can learn a new ability called EX Crit Boost or some kind of stuff like this that allows us to go from a 50% chance of performing a crit on each single bravery attack to a 100% chance. So you see that Leo will land attacks that deal 1,000 points of bravery damage for some hits. So another strength of Zidane is having Alexander on this fight. Onion Knight is one of the worst AIs to face. He will catch you off guard more times than not. And the other thing that is awful with this fight is that he has Shiva. So Shiva is a very annoying, especially on this fight. What it does is that it prevents your bravery from going higher. I think he has something like 3,600 points of HP, and he will tend to use it before you reach a bravery higher than this. So for 30 or 60 seconds, you will not be able to perform the finishing blow. So having Alexander, which fixes our bravery to a certain value, completely annihilates the role of Shiva in this instance. So here, once again, Leo is building EX with the chase mode for the following boss that we're going to face, which is X-Death. The problem with this map, sadly, is the Omega version of the Final Fantasy 1 map has a very strong drain on both character bravery that is going to the state bravery, meaning that even if you build bravery higher than the enemy's HP, if you wait too long, or if the AI just decides to dodge every fucking time, sorry for the bad word, which can happen for this for Onion Knight, as I mentioned, he's one of the worst characters that you can fight. You need to kill him as soon as possible. But as you can see here, since the bravery is going to the stage bravery, performing another stagger will grant you a lot of bravery, so you'll have more than enough time to perform the kill.
And here's Tom, Dick, Harry, Alan, Bert, and goodbye.
So another chapter that we can simply run through very easily. Chapter 3 of Shade Impulse 3. So here you see that you have a lot of red pieces that are guarding interesting items. You see a summon as well, but for the speedrun we don't need it at all, so we're just running through.
For one who has
And here another very interesting fight or chapter, sorry, in terms of design. You have a lot of of question mark signs. And for most of those fights, or for most of those rows, you can either have a golden piece, which will have 1 HP. Here we are facing a Onion Knight that will reduce our bravery to 0 with Carbon Ball, unless we have the fast spawn, but here sadly MrMizzow missed it. Or you can also fight a very strong great piece. So obviously we know the route, we know which is where. And this is also a very important chapter in terms of experience. So getting planned or fixed Chocobo bonuses there yield a lot of experience. What we can also have, and this is also cool, is we can have the Chocobo singing. So the Chocobo can add a chance of singing and granting you a random bonus. We've seen a few times there on both characters or on both players this happening. But if we have like a times 3 bonus here on those fights, it's usually very welcome.
Considering I got invisible, Omega, I've just finished my play plan.
Okay.
I thought you were going to go in with that there. Oof.
So how many tries for invisible?
First,
First.
Again.
so we'll see if RNG is as clement with Leo.
It won't.
Obviously, it won't.
Hey.
Good job.
First try.
Yeah.
Well done. You had no faith.
No, completely not. I should have
That's-
less faith every time.
That's the trick, dude. But that's you. Shade Impulse 3 and 4, the map abilities that you get aren't required, unlike Shade Impulse 2. They're just little time savers if you do get them. Oh, goodness.
So Squall here, a little bit of a troll. He has a Phoenix down, so we didn't mention those kind of accessories for yet. You have two ways of preventing a KO. You have a Phoenix down, which will prevent you from resisting an attack as long as you have more than 1 HP. It will break your accessory, so those are consumables. And you have also another accessory, I don't know the name in English, that will transform your bravery into HP if you get attacked by an attack that can kill you.
Alright, level 32.
And final chapter of Shade Impulse 3, do not open the chest, otherwise you're gonna get chained by a lot of enemies. And here we're facing against a pretty strong Garland, to be honest, on the Final Fantasy 1 map. So here buying the level 43 shield, if we are at that level, could be a very good option.
I will erase you and your soul.
However, with Zidane, since the game is pretty easy with this one, we simply need to parry and then perform the Tempest Loop until he dies.
You sound so enthusiastic about it.
Well,
One of the big differences is that we run today at a significantly lower level than other people, so you just don't have access to the same kind of gear. But we make up for it in our own way.
and here you see the strength of Alexander, allowing us to chain 3 attacks at 1800s, almost 1900s, very quickly. And so we're starting the final chapter with MrMizzow.
The gauntlet.
Thank you, Choco Bongo.
So another instance of a very good spawn on the Final Fantasy IX map, you also have those kind of pillars there where the AI can dash at you. And here Leo had the perfect RNG, so you just need to wait for the AI to dash at you. Press R to
No.
parry and then get the instant kill.
Uh-huh. Hey.
You'll be sorry. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Yeah. Easy peasy.
So just 4 fights here on the Shading Pulse 4-1. This is the only Shading Pulse or chapter, or story segment that only has 2 chapters in it. So we just need to get the kills ASAP and then go to Chaos. So I guess I can start talking about Chaos.
Oh god.
Which will be reminiscent to a lot of Final Fantasy final bosses, we have 3 phases. It's generally the most formidable enemy that the AI can control with gold-based inject in certain instances, but in terms of moveset, you can say that Chaos here is the hardest fight in the game. Or at least in the any person run for sure. So the interesting thing is that he has 3 phases. He has Shinryu as a summon that he can activate multiple times throughout the 3 phases. So you can even activate like 3 times during phase 2 if you wishes to. What we want to do here with MrMizzow is simply loop him with the Tempest. Sadly, there is nothing that you can really do with him aside from this, and it's a very safe way to get the kill.
Our goal with Chaos is, because you have this very large opponent with very large and flashy attacks on a tiny little arena, our initial goal is to try and dodge and weave our way around him until he presents us with an opening. Get behind him and then attempt to Tempest loop him. Because he's actually this large and heavy character, it causes problems for Tempest while at the same time making it a little bit easier. He's generally easier to hit because of his large frame, but he falls significantly faster than other mobs. So if he ever falls out, we're essentially back to the dodging and weaving and just getting away from him until he presents us with another opportunity. An ability I got back at level 42, though, Sneak Attack, means that anytime I attack an opponent from behind, increases my chance to crit them. And they allowed us to do that on the final boss, so we're going to try and abuse that. So even if we can open up an attack of opportunity from the front, we're then going to try and dodge and weave our way around behind him to speed up the encounter.
Yeah, he has fixed openers. He can start with a Flame Pillar, he can start with Faraga, he can start with his aerial combo, he can start with his ground combo. So reacting to what he does is usually the way to go.
So we have this little set of mobs here.
That we're just going to jump above. So we obtained an item in the first chapter of Shade Impulse 1, an item that will increase our base bravery by 25%. And those items are consumables that will get degraded every time we use them. The good thing is that this effect will be active at the start of each of the 3 phases. So we'll see.
I'm just gonna shut my gob and concentrate.
Yep. So we'll see what Chaos starts as or starts to do as an opponent. He starts with Firaga, so MrMizzow will need to be careful during the 3rd phase because during the 3rd phase they have priority over guard and dashing. And then when he is in this fatal state, he's kind of open to attacks, but only to attacks that have low startup frames. So here he starts with the shockwaves. And that's the strength of Chaos. He really has this ability to completely harass you.
So what's Mizzou's time for now?
120.
Wow. Okay.
No chance, Leo.
I mean, you didn't update it, so that could technically count as one. You know it.
So we're forcing him on the upper wall, against the wall, against the side wall. And then here we got trolled by the fact that free energy doesn't have an active hitbox at very close range. So that's the problem with Chaos. He really has this ability to chain you with a lot of a succession of attacks. So we're starting with a very low amount of HP for the next few phases. This is pretty bad in terms of behavior because Chaos AI is quite complex. So as soon as he has blue bravery, he will start to spam HP attacks, which are more or less easy to handle. And hello everyone. So here things are getting a little bit scary, demon dense, and yeah, that's a game over sadly.
Oh no. I mean, I do appreciate Chaos trying to save me some time, but
All right, Leo.
I mean, nah, I'm not that happy, but
That's chill.
I do like the thing, the thought that I could still take a bit of.
So depending on the character that you play, you can really completely get stomped by the final boss of the speedrun. So as I said, he is like by far the most formidable AI in terms of moveset, in terms of pairing that the AI can control. So you really need to make the most of it. Losing HP is particularly bad because of how Chaos's AI is handled. If the AI sees that it has an opportunity to win, he will spam HP attacks, which will make you lose a lot of time. On the other side, we have a quite annoying Mateus, so Emperor, but luckily Leo was able to finish the kill.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind Chaos buying it a few triple times again.
So at each phase, Chaos learns new abilities. Here he learns a new Bravery ability, where he just teleported from the ground as you just saw, and he also learns 2 new HP attacks, the Demon Dance that we saw earlier, and Crimson Rain as well. So
Oh boy.
yeah, Chaos is being quite mean here. And here is Shinryu fixing his Bravery, so he will have 3,000 points of Bravery for a lot of time, fortunately. I don't know if you can do anything, Leo, but you're losing a little bit of frames. I don't know if you have anything running on the side.
Nah.
Okay.
It's just fluctuating.
It's just dawned on me, but is our Lightning Returns runner ready to go?
I think they are. Everybody joined the channel, I think. So
Oh, we got a good opener.
okay, so something that is also very important to take into account is that the opening move that Chaos does has a high probability of being the same for the phase 2 and phase 3. So here we have the ground combo. We can either parry it or dodge above it and then perform the Tempest, as MrMizzow just did. So if he is consistent in this, we'll see how it goes. He's being kind of a troll at the moment, to be honest. And the problem is that every time you reset, either if you're on phase 2 or phase 3, you go back to the beginning, unfortunately. So here we have another very annoying Onion Knight that we saw that is right before Mateus, so the Emperor of Shading Pulse 2. He's very strong, he's very fast, he tends to parry a lot. So, yeah. And since, yeah, that's another problem, kind of. Oh, okay, you got lucky there. Another problem with Tidus is that aside from the chase mode, until he learns those bravery to HP combos that I mentioned earlier, he doesn't really have a lot of opportunities to deal HP attack. He has a spiral cut, which is pretty good. He has a lot of hitbox to land the attack. But then Energy Rain is highly or easily dodgeable from the enemy, sadly. So
I think we've seen enough of Chaos for one day.
okay, so this one is the good one. Don't worry. Got the good start. We're going to free energy. So Vivian, you can just stay away and then dash at him, and then perform the attack if you want. Okay, good job.
Is it a GG?
Oh yeah, first phase.
Okay, first phase.
Okay, so he starts with his aerial combo. Once again, we can parry or do the Tempest loop. But then he parries. So we'll see if Leo has the same luck as MrMizzow in terms of opening. Do we have the right side at the start? And we do not. So personally, I just reset. I'm not wasting time with this really annoying map. And good job. Okay, perfect fight. And here you see that Leo is still doing the EX burst, even though the Emperor is already at 0 HP. That's because each EX burst that you perform grants a little bit of bonus experience. So I guess you lined up a bonus there. So here we have 14,000 points of experience solely based on the fact that we're performing the EX burst. So that's a good source of experience. So Shiny Pulse 2 over. We'll see if we're lucky once again for Leo. Obtaining invisible first try would be cool.
Yeah, this time I don't really mind if I'm not lucky.
Yeah.
I have a rock for it.
Yeah, like MrMizzow, I mean, I think you only have 2 or 3 instances where you will get chained throughout the fight, throughout the story mode. So not getting invisible really isn't that bad.
Oops. Got it.
But we still get it, so GG, both of you.
Didn't get MrMizzow right though.
So that's bad. So I will mention why MrMizzow is
Let's bring it home.
is annoying. So third phase, we'll see if MrMizzow. You can send MrMizzow your energy to help him. So new phase, he has an ultimate move that we don't want to see at all because it wastes a lot of time, and he starts being very aggressive. He has this teleportability. In his Farraga also have priority now against parrying and dashes. So we got the loop. Will he stay in the loop? Crossing fingers. Seems to be good.
The early GG in chat, I loved it.
So here you will see the difference between being in EX mode and not being in EX mode in terms of damage. You see that we are slowly catching up to 5400 HP with the Bravery. We are at the top of the map with dodge cancels. He is lined up against the wall as well. Grinding up Bravery, and then we'll finish with
Time.
GG!
free energy. Good job.
What was the time?
130 and something.
That's still a good time.
GG MrMizzow.
Cheers, lads.
Do I go now?
Yep.
Oh god, that mashing. Oh boy, he went.
All right, hey guys.
Hello.
It is time for Lightning Returns. We have Eris Carroll on Team Mog starting up now, and
Hello.
Sephora in Blue hanging out with us here as well, getting ready for Team Choco. My name is Coney93. I'm one of the commentators.
And I'm Sent. I'm going to be your other commentator. So, Lightning Returns is a little bit different than the other games in the Final Fantasy 13 series. It's a bit more of an action RPG, if you will. It has timed hits, timed blocks, a little bit more control of your character while they're just waiting around between fights. And we're going to see that right away here during this sort of tutorial area where you need to clear all of these enemies to open the door. Ideally, we're going to see our runners here get a few timed lightning strikes on these niblets, because I believe that reduces the amount of lightnings you need to hit them with by 1.
Yes, it does.
It does, and they're going to want to take them in a specific order too, because of how the enemies are reset after each one of the fights. If you get them in the wrong order, one of the niblets just likes to be halfway across the room. You'll notice they're starting every fight by hitting the enemies. By initiating the combat, you can get a good, which reduces their health by 10%, or an excellent if they're completely unaware of you, which reduces their health by 20%. Running into them normally just starts the fight regularly, and if they hit you, you're going to start the fight at a disadvantage. A disadvantage, which is something we really never want to see throughout the run.
As far as overworld movement goes, this game, for some reason, decided to put in a sprint stamina meter. So that's the blue bar at the bottom there. You basically never want to let it run all the way out, or you have to walk waiting for it to fill up slower than if you just release it just before it ends there.
Yeah, you also need the stamina bar to swing your weapon in the overworld. So if you run out of stamina, you can't initiate fights either.
I've never seen this fight without Onion Knight activating Shiva there.
I've never seen that either, so... Yes, yes, that's going for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best, Sephorian, so just you wait.
Okay, we have the Japanese audio I'm hearing.
Yep.
Because Hope likes to talk a lot in this game, and get a little bit grating at times.
I'm sorry, Koinu, it's the superior audio. I gotta agree with Eris here.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. I just,
English would drive me
something about it. I
crazy.
just can't. For anyone who's familiar with the 13 story, things start to get really wonky by the time this game has come around. You'll notice that anyone who's played 13-2, Hope was an adult and, carrying the world into the future, but for some odd reason, here we are with Child Hope yet again.
It's because of Ultimis, yeah, time compression and all.
Absolutely.
So who are the commentators already for Lightning Returns?
Oh
I
shit.
heard Koyu and I didn't hear the other one.
Sent.
Oh, so is it the actual matchup for one of the games later on?
Yes.
Yeah,
the
we're
two-
actually we're the Type 0 runners, so we'll be on again after Final Fantasy 9.
You should take that opportunity to trash talk each other. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Well, I mean, we would, but I don't need to. My gameplay will do that by itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you know, I can't really argue. I'm just gonna put up the best fight I possibly can.
And suddenly I feel good being in Sen's team.
Yeah, so right there, the first boss fight just kind of went by really fast. You'll notice there was a point where Eris was quickly spamming attacks on the enemy. That's a mechanic called overclock, which is just the ability to hit the enemy multiple, like, as many times as possible before they can hit you back, doing a good chunk of damage. Overclock spends what are they? Are they EP points? It's something. I don't remember exactly what they're called. You'll see in the bottom left of the screen there's a number surrounded by a yellow meter, and that's basically how many points you get. You refill that meter by winning battles. So this entire route is based around restoring the meter enough that you can have overclocks for the fights you need them.
So yeah, you see here on Leo's screen how annoying this map can be, because not only is the Onion Knight dodging the energy rains, he's also dodging the pillars, making him pretty particularly annoying to touch.
Yeah.
Okay, in chat it's confirmed it is EP. I thought so. Wasn't sure.
I did too, but it's been so long since I looked at what the acronym actually was.
Yep.
So here, Eris is going to learn the most important EP ability in the game, Escape. Because frankly, we have no time for this tutorial or any other random battle. We're just gonna leave. Escaping isn't free in normal mode though, despite having a 0 EP cost. It's going to cost an hour of his time when he's down in the world. And the way Lightning Returns is it's kind of on a clock cycle. You have a certain number of days to finish all of the major objectives in the game to unlock the end game. And you get a little bit more time every time you defeat one of the major bosses of the game. You have until 6 a.m. every day, at which point you'll be forcibly transported back to the hub. And certain events and certain NPCs are only available at certain times of the day. So a lot of the run is routed around sleeping until certain times to trigger certain events, doing things in very specific orders in order to, get as much done in one day as possible. And there are plenty of days where you do have maybe an extra hour or two if you need to run away from a battle, but some days are very tightly routed, so hopefully we won't see too many random encounters.
So what Leo just did on the previous battle was a chase mode bravery trap kill. You see here on the Final Fantasy V map at the bottom you have this kind of sky, but if you touch that kind of bottom limits, you will have this kind of blackish orb surrounding you, and that if you stay close to that limit, you will be teleported to a place where you can stand and losing bravery. You can, through the chase mode with the bravery attacks, launch an enemy to that kind of weird warp area. And the funny thing is that the AI has no ability to dodge whatsoever in that state when the black orb is appearing. So what you can do is build bravery, launch the enemy into this warp state, and then press square to finish the fight, because the enemy will never dodge it. However, something that is interesting to know is that if the enemy by chance launches you into this warp state through chase mode, you can dodge, but the AI cannot.
So what Eris is doing right now is the game forcibly makes you take on this first quest, where they want you to solve the mystery of why these people are being murdered. But frankly, we don't have time for any of this, so we're just going to attack the guards a few times to make them hostile, get into fights with them, leave the fights with them to skip enough time that the quest just auto-completes, and then go to sleep.
And this is something only doable in normal mode because of that time pressing ahead when you escape a battle. In easy, you are forced to finish main quest 1, which is just running around, and it's like a giant fetch quest, basically, just picking stuff up and dropping it off.
I'm going to be entirely honest, Koinu, I've never actually finished this quest.
There you go. Yeah, it's literally just, you go and you look at some pamphlets and you talk to a guard and you have to find Holmes and bring him to his friend because Holmes is too scared. It's just a giant fetch quest.
So level 43, we're going to buy a lot of stuff here, making the most of our money. we have a small bonus. So we have here, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a blue 1.5 bonus. So those are the notes, the random notes that I mentioned that you can have locally. And here we're going to buy the new highest tiered weapon that we can equip, which is the Estoc. And also the Force Shield, because as I mentioned earlier, if you can afford through the level a shield here on this fight, and especially on Chaos, I highly suggest that you do, because you can really get wrecked. And here Leo just equipped or activated one of those Bravery to HP trees abilities that I mentioned earlier. So we'll see if we get to see the quick hit in action. A deep breath, and here we go.
I love my notes. Use the Maze Eye if possible. I didn't get it.
So Lightning just woke up, and we're going to sleep for a couple hours. With Lightning Returns, we have a certain number of, obviously, main objectives. Like we said, you have to finish before God decides to destroy the world. And for this, it doesn't really matter what order you do them in. It's kind of hinted the way the game wants you to do them, and some are going to be easier than others, but you kind of have to adjust your time to complete different objectives kind of at the same time. So now we're leaving the Luxarian and moving on to Euston, which is the city where Snow resides.
We started the game there before he kicked us out of his castle and went to go cry in his room. Lightning Returns at its core is basically about Lightning beating up all of her friends because they're being very depressed.
Yes. Especially for the speed run. As far as stats and increasing your character's strength go in Lightning Returns, every quest you do gives you stats. So there are tons of side quests, and you'll get like magic and items and things to help you out. We don't have time for the other side beings in this game. We just help our friends. No one else needs any help.
Yeah. It is worth mentioning, though, about that. Quests are the only way to get stats aside from equipment. Random battles only reward you with EP, so that you can use more of those EP abilities every day. You cannot grind any harder to get things. And here, Lightning's going to run around and talk to some Chocobo ladies to get some fireworks for later. Unfortunately, we skip the cutscene where they make her say meow meow Choco Chow, but because that cutscene is amazing.
That reminds me of a certain event hosted on that channel. Really. I don't know if Takaza is here, but he's responsible for that. Oh,
So,
seems alright. Nothing
at that shop, sorry. At that shop, we're selling a few things, and we're picking up a new garb, Velvet Bouncer. So we haven't really talked about garbs at all, but in this game, garbs are kind of your general purpose equipment, I guess. You can equip up to 3 of them at once, and in battle, you can switch between them freely. Each has its own action gauge, and you can bind different abilities to them. But some of them also come with their own stats or even their own pre-bound abilities. So there we picked up the Velvet Bouncer garb, which comes with a plus 80 to strength, which is pretty massive this early on in the game, especially when we haven't done any side quests. And it also comes with Blitz, which is a powerful AoE ability that we can guard cancel to do a lot of DPS with.
And guard canceling, what that is specifically, it'll be a lot easier to see, especially with that blitz attack, because normally after you do 3 blitzes in a row, there's a pretty big wind up before Lightning will do another attack, but we just kind of skip that by doing the guards.
An important caveat to mention about overclock as well earlier is that when you overclock, you actually get a completely separate resource bar that any of your garbs can use to take actions, and your normal garbs refill their resource during the overclock. So a bit later, we're going to see a lot of just chaining overclocks, hitting maybe once or twice out, and then chaining overclocks again to just completely decimate enemies.
Yeah, so here we have more of the multitasking, and we got a couple of fireworks, but at this time of day, there's not really much else we can do. We're going to go back to Luxarian and continue that subplot. All right, so we're supposed to stealthily follow behind these guys and figure out what they're doing, but that's slow. So we run up and we beat the crap out of them.
Meanwhile, I'm using the deck shot. I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone is interested, but
I was going to mention this. So we learned a new ability at level 42, 45, I don't remember. A new HP attack for Tidus, which is the Jack Shot. It has much better range than Energy Rain. In terms of startup frames, it's kind of the same, but it's much more usable and much more convenient to use than Energy Rain.
Also, I completely messed up the fight.
Ah, that's okay. You got the good luck, though. Sometimes with those disciples, you'll finish the fight, and for some reason, some of them remain behind.
Well, some did remain behind, but sometimes works.
It's based on which one you start the fight with. Ideally, you want to start the fight with the one that has the golden exclamation point over his head. But I think there are like
No,
a group of
see,
3
doesn't
that
work.
work.
Fuck.
Ooh, yeah, it looks like Eris didn't kill the disciple he needed to, so he's gonna have to go back and take him out.
I jinxed it. I shouldn't have said anything.
No, it's fine. I was just thinking if reloading was faster, but I don't know where auto was. God damn it.
Yeah, I don't know where the nearest autosave was. It might be here at the start of Yusnan. This fight's going to be a little different without having an overclock to spend on them, though.
And here we saw the first instance of Quick Hit. So one of the strengths of Tidus is that he has some of his moves that have a dodge built in the animation. So here we saw Tidus kind of make a flip, throw the cattle bog down, and then perform the Quick Hit. Those are those bravery to HP combos that I mentioned earlier, where you simply need to connect with the bravery attack and then press square, and automatically Tidus will follow up with the HP attack. And we're starting the final chapter of the game. As I mentioned in the chat, we didn't get invisible or jump, so we'll have to perform a fight against the Cloud of Darkness, and then run away from the fight against Death. Absolutely, so we can use this for chaos. Optimally, you want your EX gauge filled.
And I got the MrMizzow right, so I'm gonna be able to lower his HP.
Absolutely. So we're gonna use this fight against the Cloud of Darkness to fill our EX gauge, so we don't have to fill it during the fight.
So what just happened there was Eris went and talked into a phone booth because we're trying to follow those disciples, and they asked for a passcode, which we obviously don't have in normal. We do go around and we try and get that passcode in easy. Overclock only costs 1 EP point, and because of that, it's much easier to spam. So we just force our way through and have to fight a dreadnought. Unfortunately, no such luck with normal, at least not yet. Maybe someday.
I mean, we're going to put "find the code" in as many quotation marks as possible.
Well, yeah,
we find one number of the 4-number code and just kind of play the odds.
Depends on how brave you're feeling. I sometimes will go for 3 if I need to.
What, 3?
I was not good at this category.
Okay. I mean, 2 should be the max.
Two, yeah, I don't even know where the third one is, I'm going to be honest. So there, Eris picked up the Magician's Token. The Magician's Token is an accessory that's going to give you 10% increased magic damage, which is going to be super useful. So for most of the game, our basic garb setup is we are going to have a physical oriented garb, a magical oriented garb, and a debuff oriented garb. Towards the end of the game, we'll be swapping that last one for another physical oriented garb. Here's our first interaction with the Chaos. It makes enemies aggressive, but it also doubles their drop rates. We're going to need that later, but for now, we're just going to run through it because we don't care about anything these enemies could possibly drop. Eris does need to make sure he picks up a Soul Seed, though, to complete a later quest. I have had several runs fail because I forgot to pick up a Soul Seed at any point in the run, and the quest will not continue if you do not trade at least 1 seed.
Let's go for the fight.
Luckily, there's plenty of opportunities. You just have to remember to take them.
If
the hell is
Sephorian is
this?
still here,
Did you see that, guys?
the time.
Yeah, so get ready for the time.
You got this, Leo.
So we'll see what he opens with. Flame Pillar, so just need to find an opening. And then, unfortunately, Tidus, out of all of the Cosmos characters, has probably the weakest matchup against Chaos. Most of the other characters have a way to loop him. Unfortunately for Leo, it's not the case with Tidus. So we will be relying for the most part on Hot Step to perform chase mode and then go along with it.
There we just picked up the Passion Rogue outfit. That's going to become, I believe, our debuffing outfit. It has D-Shell and D-Protect along with it.
Passion Rouge, please.
Rouge, I know.
So something that we didn't mention earlier is the fact that when you launch an enemy with your bravery or HP attacks, you're performing impact damage. And this is particularly important for HP attacks because if, let's say, you do an attack that deals 1000 points of HP damage, but that impacts the enemy on the wall or on the ground or on the ceiling, you will do an additional 500 points of damage. So here, maximizing the impact damage here will be very important for the fight against Chaos.
Oh no.
Platforming the ultimate endgame in Lightning Returns.
Okay. So unfortunately, we didn't get the impact because it was too high. It's not too bad. We can simply dodge. Our base bravery should go high enough for us to perform the kill as soon as possible. Okay, perfect. So first phase is down. Second phase, as I mentioned, he learns a new bravery ability. He did the same move as he did in the first phase, so that's a good indication that he will do the Flame Pillar on phase 3. As you saw here, Chaos, he just started to cast his Demon Dance, but Hot Step has so few frames of startup that that Leo managed to catch the attack before he was actually started. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Like, if I'm talking and you need to go, feel free to immediately cut me off. With this, it's just a sign of normal percent's tight day routing. If he gets caught by a single enemy here, it's going to ruin everything. Because it's 4 a.m., you'll notice, and once it hits 6 a.m., we are forced to go back to the Arc, and it could cause some major problems. Ooh, that was a close one. Yeah, those Mayonectans especially, it's incredibly hard to kill them with where we're at
There's
right
no
now.
way you're gonna kill them with that setup.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are a couple of fights in Desert 1 that you can take. The Mayonectan is not one. You have no hope. You gotta reroute.
I knew it.
Nice, good job. Okay. So good use of Behemoth there, and then final phase we have our EX Gauge. That's a nice EX card, so something that I didn't mention. When turning to EX, you have invulnerability frames that are absolute. It's like the Omni card of Jack. We get ready for time, and that was like a very clean fight for Chaos. So good job.
And time, Sephorian, you can go all out.
All right.
Good job.
GG, Leo.
Good job, Leo.
135, that wasn't too bad.
Yep. Alright, everyone. Enjoy Lightning Returns. Bye bye. Good luck, everyone.